Hello anybody, and welcome back to Let's Play Super Metroid. I'm Mr. Devious, or just Deeb, and in the last episode, we picked up the remaining power-ups around Brinstar and Crateria, and then we plunged into the depths of Norfair. Specifically, we've gone down to Lower Norfair now, where there's temples and just this artificial metal piping and stuff, and we got the screw attack, the ultimate attack in the game, that blows up most things, not everything, but most things. Just as another demonstration of that, kaboom, they're dead. Now we're coming back over to the right. You wanted to go over to the left in the last episode to go through that little maze portion area in order to get the screw attack in the first place. We also got the last super missile pack in the game, but I digress. And I know I keep saying that, but habits die hard. We're coming back through this room and tearing through all this stuff. We've already seen this stuff, but we had to take a little diversion in the last episode to get a missile pack that we couldn't have gotten otherwise. There are these faces in here that block our way, and I just want to say that I think Lower Norfair is my favorite area in the game. It might have my favorite track, I'm not entirely sure on that. But it's got a great power-up, and I think it's just generally got a great aesthetic, whereas Upper Norfair is mostly just, you know, ominous caverns. This place is like, it's got this whole tribal temple feel to it, but not only that, it has, like, artificial aspects. I mean, the doors are one... God dang it. I don't know why I got so mad at that, I just did. But, anyway, it's got this great combination of this, you know, there's this all this temple stuff. You drop into this room, by the way. Well, I'll talk about the aesthetic more, but the acid lava's rising. I'm not sure which is which. Oh god. Actually, you don't want to really platform in here. Well, you do want a platform. I would actually advise going up on the platforms rather than using the space jump to try and cut your way up, because you have more than enough time to kind of do this area on foot. Hold on. Boom. And I'm gonna get that extra health. You have more than enough time to do this area on foot using the platforms rather than being risky with the space jump and risking falling from midair down into the depths of the acid lava, whatever it is. Now, this might have where we want to go in here, but I'm gonna just search around. Yeah, that's where we want to go, but I actually want to come over to the right real quickly because there is something I'm gonna take a brief detour to get. This path actually, if you continue up, if you follow it long enough, it will take you out of Norfair, out of Lower Norfair and back into Upper Norfair. But the reason I come down here is because there is a power-up that is just worth the few second diversion, and that is this energy tank. It's so delightful. And now there's only one left in the game. Incidentally, if you freeze the fireflies, they still produce light in these areas, so that's a good method if they're in your way but you don't want to destroy them. That being said, now that you have the screw attack, you kind of need to be careful in getting out of here. Also, your hint for that area is the enemy that was sitting there was like the other face enemies, but you could destroy those ones with super missiles, whereas the other ones in this area are invincible. So that's kind of your hint that there's something hidden behind it. But where we want to go, anyway, is down here. Also, Lower Norfair, in addition to having like the most labyrinth kind of design, it also has the distinction of not giving you any map data for this lower area. You're kind of entirely on your own down here. And there are these completely evolved bugs. Like, these are the highest level of these bugs we'll see. They take a ton of shots, and I'm not sure... Oh, yep, screw attack blows them up. But they're still the toughest of their breed. At this point, you just kind of want to screw attack into everything, because that is just your best method of dealing with pretty much everything that deigns to get in your way. Hey, save pod. And we are actually so crazy close to the end of Norfair. It's actually got me a little bit giddy because this area is short and sweet. That's another thing I really like about this area, is it doesn't really waste your time. It's not like Meridia, which is just too big and bloated, and I guess it's because this is technically the second half of Norfair, which we've already seen, but I just think this area is it's got a really good design, and the further you go into it, you see all these Chozo statues and all these, like, this was a Chozo site, but there are these hidden paths and these artificial things, and the further you get, the more obvious it becomes, and there are giant spiky side hoppers that they're tough. Of course, screw attack kills everything, so you don't have to really worry about it that much. There are these secret paths, and then there's one over there, and I think this might actually be... I think that's the second last power bomb in the game, but we almost have them all now. And I think from here there aren't any more power-ups for me to worry about as we plunge on to the end of Norfair. By the time you get to this point, it's kind of a straight shot down. You just keep on going, and you ride this bloody elevator. I mean, what else is the red on it? I mean, I guess it could be rust. You ride it down, and there's actually no secrets down there, surprisingly. You blow open this door, and you uncover something very, very interesting. There's this room with these TV monitors, and these metal pipes, and these pirates who you shoot. They throw chicken wings at you. Or I have no idea what's up with that attack. Boomerangs, you try to screw attack them, but they just kind of kick at you when you do that, so they're immune to that. So you're wondering, what the hell are these guys? These are silver pirates. These are the most powerful pirates in the game. I'd like to think that they're pirate commanders. What you're supposed to do is you jump over them, they spin through the air, and then they kick, they turn gold for a moment, and that's your opening to attack them. There's 2 of them in this room, and you kind of have to be careful in fighting them. These guys can actually do a ton of damage to you if you're reckless and not sure what you're doing here, especially since there's 2 of them. So yeah, the strategy, and now they're using each other as shields, but that's 1 blown up, and now they're much easier. You jump over them as a reminder, and eventually they'll jump through the air, and then they'll do their karate kick, try to run away. They'll kick you. These guys are hilarious, but I love them just because they're in this room with big monitors. I just like the idea that just through designing a world, they've kind of made these elite pirates who are here. Even though we've already seen gold pirates, now there are silver pirates who are even better. I am talking so fast, but you come to that room and that's not even the end. So this is kind of your big hint that this is the heart of the Space Pirates operations. That's how I interpreted it anyway. And you might have remembered when we went to fight Kraid that there were these green blocks like these purple ones. Well, in the original Metroid, like how they had green blocks there were also purple blocks in the original Metroid that kind of signified that you were in the area of a certain other boss. Another boss who's at the end of this area, who's hiding, who has been hiding from us this whole game, to be precise. And just to kind of hammer it in that you're at the end, you have one of these doors. I shouldn't have wasted my super missiles, but that's okay. Because we finally made it to the end of Norfair, and hiding in the heart of the Space Pirates base is our old pal, Ridley. Hello, Ridley. It's time for the rematch against the boss that has taunted us the entire time. He takes no damage from the screw attack, but while you're in screw attack, you are immune to damage from him. This is very useful to know, and he'll fly around the arena, and even though he's kind of hunched and gangly, he's actually very mobile, despite this room being very narrow. This is a room where you're fighting him technically on your terms. This fight is much more... the odds are much more in his favor than in yours. You got the music playing in the background, he's trying to spike you down from the bottom, and enough of this, enough of this charge shot stuff. You can pump him with missiles. It's just, this feels like the right way to do it, is just kind of pumping him with missiles. Ridley has a lot of HP, and this is a really fun fight. I think he's also the most erratic of the bosses in the game. I'm never really sure how to learn his pattern. When he spikes around at the ground, the best method here is to either space jump above him or roll around on the ground below him, but you kind of have to use your everything you've kind of learned in this fight against him. This is just an awesome fight, even though his sprite is a little goofy with his tiny little wings and his hunched body that doesn't really move that much, but it's just so fun and so awesome to finally be up against him, especially after he ran away with the baby Metroid at the start of the game. Yeah, remember that. That's what we're doing here. Anytime you game over in this game, the game reminds you to go find the baby Metroid. And yes, this is actually a very interesting end-of-area boss. Ridley is the final end-of-area boss, where if you have to pump missiles into him, of course, but unlike the other ones, like Dragon, who is hard to hit with super missiles, and Fantoon, who becomes super hard if you hit him with super missiles, Ridley, you want to take advantage of your super missiles because he has so much HP. He's a little bit tricky to hit, but you want to just pump them all into him because that is the best way to fight him. That is the most damage output you're going to be getting in this fight. In addition to it's just so fun. I've gotta admit, I'm a sucker for boss fights that just have tons of HP. You just sink so much damage into them, and he's turning this bright red. He just keeps going forever. And eventually, I think he might be trying to grab me. Eventually, he'll grab you, and then he'll explode. And that, my friends, is the canonical death of Ridley. In Metroid lore, even though you fight Ridley a billion times across the Metroid series, and he blows up every time and always comes back to fight another day. This Ridley fight has the honor of actually being the canonical death of Ridley. He wasn't actually rebuilt after this fight, even though he appeared in games that came after this one. But I'm not going to get too much into that. But man, I really like that fight. It's actually really high energy, and it's... That was the capsule that held the baby Metroid. Well, god damn it. You come all this way and you fight Ridley, and then suddenly you get hit with the plot again. But before you leave, shoot this block and get this energy tank, because that is the last energy tank in the game and we are completely full on it. But dang, that's actually kind of a little bit of a... I wouldn't say mood whiplash, but it does kind of whiplash the mood of the game back into what's going on. Like, this is what our mission was. It was to find the baby Metroid, but the baby Metroid is gone. Where could it be? And it's a very striking moment, kind of, in the game. That is gathering you remember that the baby Metroid was in a capsule, and that Ridley did kidnap the baby Metroid at the beginning of the game. Sorry if my words are a little bit jumbled. I'm just a little bit high energy here after that moment, just kind of coming down off of a little bit of a high, because that fight is awesome. So at this point, you're kind of left to wonder, where else is there left to go? I mean, you've killed all the end bosses, you've tried to find the baby Metroid, but even after killing Samus's nemesis and defeating Ridley, you realize all of a sudden that you've explored everywhere. You've gone to Norfair, Brinstar, Meridia, Crateria, the wrecked ship, you've killed Kraid, Phantoon, I guess Crocomire, Dragon, and now Ridley, and now you think you've taken care of the pirates and that they're basically mostly dead, but, well, they're not. You might have remembered, way back at the start of the Let's Play, also these pirate commanders come back and they're kind of a pain in the butt. The best way to fight them is to kind of keep them from, you know, joining up with each other, in my opinion. But anyway. Gotta jump over this guy again, but yeah, you take care of all this stuff and then you realize this isn't the end of the game, and suddenly the plot comes back, given that you remember that, you know, the plot. Like, I've seen other people play this game where they get to the room after Ridley and they don't necessarily know what the capsule is. Not often, but come on, do your jump. I think you might not actually be allowed to. Why isn't he doing his thing? Okay, there we go. It's just, I think it's good. I think it's good storytelling in a game that doesn't have much story to speak of. This is kind of where the story comes back into play. Oh my god. How do you even think, do you have to shoot at him? And two. Those guys are kind of, they're tricky even if you know how to fight them, because they don't always do the jump. So at this point, you're left to crawl your way all the way back out of Norfair, but the reason I'm kind of showing off the process of getting out of Norfair is to talk a little bit about the reemergence of the story in the game, as well as show off the path you're actually or the path you should be taking out of Norfair. Because there is a path that you don't necessarily find. You don't have to take it, and it's very sneakily hid. Sneakily hid. Is that even a thing? Well, anyway. Because we come out here, and maybe even you're coming off the adrenaline rush, you're running back out of here as quickly as you can, but now I'm just kind of postulating on, just making presumptions. We're almost near the end of the game, though. I haven't even mentioned, like, after we beat Meridia, it was kind of striking to me how close we are to the end of the game. There is only one area left, and again, you might... I'm just gonna save for good measure. There's one area left in the game, and that, again, I talked about it earlier. I didn't quite get into it, but long time ago, in like the first or second episode, I think it was the second episode, I showed off a room that you're supposed to keep in mind from the very beginning of the game. You're tempted to go in there by a missile door, and you go to the end, and there's a dead end, and it's all the way back in Crateria. And maybe you remember what it is, you probably do, and there's a reason that I've kind of talked about the 4 bosses as end bosses, and that's kind of your hint to remember what I'm talking about. But, anyway, Now for the path that we're on, this new path. You come through this door and you realize that there's no way to get that power bomb except for going in from above, and that's the last power bomb in the game. Well, here's the thing. You come back into this room, you scan around, and there doesn't seem to be a way out of here. Gentlemen, I give you the wall. That wall, as you just saw, the X-ray visor does not expose it as a fake, and you're just kind of left to assume until you find it, and that is very aggravating, and I don't like it. Now, there are a few missile packs left in this area for us to get, the last ones in the game if I've been keeping track enough, but first, we gotta come back over here. First, we gotta get this missile pack. And then we're just gonna kind of scan around and get a feel for this area. Of course, why am I even bothering with anything but the, whoa, power bomb? You want to kind of come in here and get a feel for this area. This is the last kind of maze-like area in the game. This area is a little annoying. So that block there is a crumbly block. We don't want to fall on that. So we want to hold hard to the right. And where we want to get to is down there. So it's kind of a clear shot from here. A lot of spring ball jumping. You need the spring ball jumping as far as I know. And that brings us to the end of this path. And what, of course, did we come in here for? But the power bomb we saw earlier. Isn't that nice? And I think that's the last power bomb in the game. We'll get the confirmation on that as soon as we get back to our ship. And yes, I am going back to our ship because that is a long way back and that's actually very close to the final area of the game. You plunge all the way back into Norfair to fight Ridley, the final end of area boss. This is like the deepest point in the game. This is the deepest point on the map, furthest as possible from the surface of the planet, and then you have to go all the way back up just to get where you need to go. I'm gonna double check for a missile in this area. Survey says I'm on the right track. So this area has a bunch of rising lava and statues and areas where you kind of crouch in to hide, and this is where the last thing in the... Come on. No, see, that's not even where you need to go. Where you need to go is in through this block and kind of outside the level, and that might just be the final missile pack in the game. And with that, with the final power bomb and the final super missile, we have everything. We have 100% completion of everything, because there are no new power-ups to get in the final area of the game. So we pretty much have everything, and from here it's just a matter of getting back up and out of this area, this place, and back where we need to go. The music changes because now we've gotten through this area, and this exit out of Norfair is optional, but it is one way, and that is kind of your hint. All in all, I really like Hold on. There we go. All in all, I really like Lower Norfair. It's got two good bosses with the Golden Torizo and Ridley. It's got the screw attack, which is just a blast to use. It's so much fun. And this actually brings us all the way back to the bubble room. And it's so much fun. And it's got a good aesthetic with the temple, as well as being like the heart of the Space Pirates base that they rebuilt. And I'm gonna try and get back to the area that I want to go to as quickly as possible, so I'm gonna get over there. I would just skip back up to the surface, but I figure this is the second to last episode, so this is our last trip back up to the surface. And I was kind of not sure if there would be 2 episodes for the end or 1 more. I think I'm gonna go back up in this episode just to have the final area be its own episode. And it's gonna be a big one, so mark it on your calendar, I guess. It's gonna be special. But yeah, we're very close to the end of Super Metroid, and it's kind of striking how the end of the game kind of sneaks up on you in a way. The game gives you so many of your power-ups early on that it's kind of remarkable. You get your super missiles, your power bombs, you get so much stuff all before you even fight Fantoon, but I wouldn't even call Fantoon the halfway point of the game. I'd say beating Fantoon is more like the 2/3 of the way, and then Dragon is probably like 3/4 or something. This is a really hard game to quantify by Metroidvania standards of completion of how far you are when you're done, but it always feels like the ending kind of sneaks up on you, because this isn't really a long game when you know what you're doing. You can get lost in this world for hours and just kind of take forever to find everything on your own, but when you know what you're doing, well, it doesn't take that long. Truth be told, and this is kind of something I haven't mentioned yet, if you beat the game in under 3 hours, you get a classic Metroid bonus. It was a tradition in this era of Metroid, with Super Metroid, Metroid 2, and the original Metroid, I'm not sure if I said Super Metroid first, is that if you beat the game fast enough, Samus would take off her clothes and reveal that she... Also, screw this room if you're climbing back out of it, because suddenly you blow these enemies up if you touch them. Actually, my advice for this room would be to turn the screw attack off, because it actually becomes more difficult with the screw attack. Anyway... When you beat the game, if you beat the game in under 3 hours, Samus takes off her armor and reveals that, oh my god, she is a lady. And this was a bigger surprise than the original Metroid, because even in the manuals, Samus was called a boy, and this was like its whole big thing about how Samus... It was kind of a funny moment in gaming in that it was cheesecake, because, you know, it's Samus in a bikini in like the first 3 games, but it's also kind of the surprise of, in the early days of gaming anime, oh my god, she was a woman. Nowadays, that shouldn't really be that big of a deal that she's a woman, because I think that women are better represented in games than they used to be. But then again, that's not really a can of worms I want to open up. Not for discussion, not now. It's very complicated, and it's very hard to say anything without stepping on a lot of toes. So, in summary, if you beat the game in under 3 hours, Samus shows off her bikini, and if you don't beat the game in under 3 hours, if you beat the game in under like 10 hours, she'll do something else. I've already gone over the 3-hour limit, but that's just how difficult it is to 100% this game, and also clock in under the time limit. Under 10 hours, I mean, over 10 hours is generally considered a slow run of this game, but, you know, for Super Nintendo game, even in the Super Nintendo game, in the Super Nintendo era, last ability was kind of a... Not a lot of games had a lot of it. So, for a Super Nintendo game, I think it lasted just fine. So let's... Excuse me. Also turn back on the screw attack before I forget and make an idiot out of myself. But all in all, yeah, I'd say that for a Super Nintendo title, this is fairly meaty, at least your first time. But then after that, I think this is a game that kind of, it runs better on replays than on your first try, but it's got so many good surprises on your first run through, and it's just a good game. But I'll save my final thoughts for when it's actually the end of the final video. So yeah, we get all of our stuff, and we got all the energy tanks, all the super missiles, all the power bombs, and all the energy tanks and missiles, and I think I already said one of those already, but I digress. We have gotten everything in the game. This is a 100% file, and in the next episode, we are going to be leaving the safety of our ship, plunging back into the planet one more time, go to the space pirate base, find the baby Metroid, and finish the game. I hope to see somebody then. Bye-bye!